Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being truly well-informed. Today, we're cutting through the noise, pulling out the most important nuggets of knowledge from a really fascinating stack of sources.
Yeah, we're covering everything from the farthest reaches of space, right down to global politics, and even the policies shaping our daily lives.
Exactly. Think of this as your fast track to understanding what's going on.
Our mission for you, our listener, is pretty straightforward. We want to be your expert guides. We're not just telling you what is happening, but really digging into why it matters.
Connecting the dots, right? Giving you that context.
Precisely, those aha moments that make complex stuff suddenly click. We'll hit groundbreaking science, some pretty tumultuous geopolitical shifts, key economic trends.
And we'll even touch on those human stories, the ones often lost behind the big headlines.
Definitely.
Okay, let's dive in. #TagI, Cosmic Mysteries and Future Tech Frontiers. We're kicking things off big. I mean, really big. Looking up at the cosmos, where the James Webb Space Telescope, the JWST, it just keeps rewriting the rulebook.
Oh, absolutely. It's delivered another center. Astronomers using JWST have identified this colossal black hole, an absolute monster.
Okay.
And get this, it existed just 500 million years after the Big Bang.
I mean, 500 million after the Big Bang. That's nothing in cosmic terms, right? The universe is what, 13.8 billion years old?
Exactly. It's a cosmic infancy. And this thing is 300 million times the mass of our sun. It's now the earliest confirmed black hole we know of, sitting right in the core of a small, bright galaxy.
300 million suns. 500 million years after everything started. I mean, how does that even happen? Doesn't that just shatter our existing theories?
It really does. That's the core problem here. Our, let's say, standard models for how black holes form, especially the idea of seed black holes growing from collapsed stars and then slowly pulling in matter over billions of years.
Yeah, that slow growth model.
That model just can't explain something this massive this early. It doesn't work. JWST had already found these confusing little red dots, remember, these compact galaxies that were way too bright for our old formation models.
Right, those were a puzzle too.
Well, this massive black hole might actually be the explanation for those little red dots. It fits.
Ah, okay. So it's not just some random discovery. It might actually solve another mystery. But still, how did it get so big so fast? It feels like it cheated cosmic evolution.
Well, researchers are now thinking along new lines. The speculation is that these super early, supermassive black holes might have formed inside these rare, slowly spinning dark matter halos.
Dark matter halos, like the invisible scaffolding of the universe.
Exactly. Vast, invisible structures. Now, the key here is slowly spinning. The theory goes that in these slow-spinning halos, the regular gas and matter wouldn't get flung outwards as much by centrifugal force.
Okay.
So it could collapse much more directly, much more rapidly under gravity. This means a black hole could potentially form straight from that primordial gas.
Skipping the whole star collapsing into a seed part.
Precisely. Bypassing the need for the conventional supernova process entirely. It's a different pathway.
Wow. So black holes weren't just, latecomers to the party. They might have been fundamental to how galaxies even started forming.
That's the implication. They could be integral, maybe even formative, right from the very early stages.
So for you listening, the big takeaway here isn't just, wow, big black hole. It's that the universe got incredibly complex, incredibly structured, way faster than we thought possible.
Our whole timeline for cosmic adolescence, for how galaxies formed, it needs a serious rethink. It suggests a much more dynamic, much quicker early evolution.
Okay, cosmic adolescence. I like that. Now, speaking of dark matter, that invisible stuff you mentioned, the halos making up like 85% of the universe's mass.
Yeah, the stuff we only know is there because of its gravity.
Right. Well, there's some new research that sounds even wilder, maybe closer to home, relatively speaking. It suggests dark matter could turn planets into black holes.
It is genuinely mind-bending stuff.
Yeah.
This research comes out of the University of California, Riverside.
Mm.
And the idea is, essentially, if dark matter particles are heavy enough.
Which we don't know for sure, but if they are.
Right. If they have significant mass, then giant planets, like gas giants, could actually accumulate these particles over vast cosmic timescales.
Just gravitationally sweeping them up as they orbit?
Kind of, yes. As these heavy particles build up in the planet's core, their combined mass, their gravitational pull, could eventually become so intense that the core itself collapses under its own weight.
And poof! Planet becomes a black hole.
Well, maybe not poof, more like a transformation. The planet essentially collapses inward into a planet-sized black hole.
So not a violent explosion, but like A silent internal implosion, almost like cosmic termites eating it from the inside out.
That's actually a pretty good analogy. And the implications are just
I
huge.
can imagine.
If we could actually find these planet-sized black holes, maybe we spot weird gravitational effects or notice exoplanets seemingly disappearing where they shouldn't.
That would be direct evidence for certain types of dark matter, wouldn't it?
Exactly. Tangible evidence for specific dark matter theories. It would completely revolutionize our understanding of dark matter, obviously, but also our whole idea of how planets evolve.
It suggests a planet's fate isn't just tied to its star.
Right. It could also be shaped by these invisible, pervasive cosmic forces by the dark matter environment it lives in.
So when we're searching for exoplanets looking for other Earths, we might actually be looking at potential future black holes, or maybe finding evidence of dark matter itself.
It totally reframes how we might approach studying exoplanets, those thousands of planets we've found out there. They could suddenly become probes, proxies for studying dark matter.
Instead of building giant detectors on Earth.
We could look for the signatures of dark matter's influence on these distant worlds. Maybe an exoplanet that's way denser than it should be, or has a weird energy output, or, like you said, one that seems to vanish over cosmic time.
So the search for alien life and the search for dark matter might actually be linked through the fate of planets. That's unexpected.
It's a fascinating connection. The core insight for you is really about these unseen forces truly shaping the cosmos, and how looking for planets might help us understand them.
Okay, let's move from the potentially planet-destroying to the potentially life-creating. Still out in space, but focusing now on Saturn's giant moon, Titan, and also a big step for Canada's space program.
Yeah, this is really exciting territory for astrobiology. NASA, that's the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Their research suggests that those incredibly cold, frozen lakes on Titan might be forming simple, cell-like structures. They're called vesicles.
Vesicles, like precursors to cells.
Kind of, yeah. Think of them as maybe the very earliest building blocks, similar perhaps to what might have formed on primitive Earth. Titan is unique, remember. It's the only moon in our solar system with stable liquid on its surface.
But it's liquid methane and ethane, not water, right?
Right.
Freezing cold.
Exactly. Hydrocarbon lakes. And it has this thick atmosphere, rich in nitrogen and methane. It's an extreme environment, totally alien to Earth. But that's what makes it so valuable. It's an analog, a testbed, for studying how life's chemistry might start in conditions radically different from ours.
So it expands our whole definition of what a habitable place could be.
Precisely. It forces us to think beyond water-based life.
So we're not expecting little green men waving from Titan, but maybe tiny methane-based bubbles doing something.
Yeah.
Still, that's huge for understanding life's potential.
Absolutely monumental. And then closer to home, on our own moon, Canada's making a big move.
Right, their first lunar rover.
Yeah, it's a landmark mission for Canada and a really crucial part of the bigger international push to investigate water on the moon.
Water ice, specifically trapped in those dark craters.
That's the target. Water is the holy grail for future lunar exploration. Not just for astronauts to drink, obviously, but you can break it down into hydrogen and oxygen.
Rocket fuel.
Exactly. Rocket fuel, breathable air. Finding accessible water ice on the moon could dramatically lower the cost and complexity of setting up long-term lunar bases and even launching missions to Mars from the moon.
Makes the moon a stepping stone, a refueling station.
That's the vision. Canada's rover will be heading to those permanently shadowed regions, likely near the lunar poles, where it's perpetually freezing cold and ice could have survived for billions of years.
Imagine that future lunar outposts, maybe partly sustained by ice found by this Canadian rover. It's pretty cool.
It really is. So the insight for you here is that these missions, they seem distant, right? Rocks, moons, ice. But they're fundamentally about us. They're tackling profound questions about where life comes from and where humanity might be going next. They're tangible steps towards our future beyond Earth.
Okay, let's bring it back down to Earth now, but keep our focus squarely on the future. We need to talk about the artificial intelligence revolution, AI. It feels like it's moving at warp speed.
It really is. The pace is just staggering. And we're getting some pretty stark warnings alongside these mind-blowing innovations.
Like from Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI.
Exactly. He's warning about very worrying implications. He points specifically to the tech rivalry, the sort of AI arms race between China and the U.S., especially in chasing artificial general intelligence, or AGI.
AGI being that hypothetical AI that can learn or understand any intellectual task a human can.
Right. And Hinton predicts this race could lead to widespread unemployment from automation and also a big spike in cyber attacks, potentially within just the next 5 years.
5 years. That's soon.
It is. He's really stressing the need for international cooperation on AI safety. He even talks about needing to build AI systems that have, quote, intrinsic motivations to care for humanity.
Intrinsic motivations to care. Okay, that sounds simultaneously reassuring and slightly terrifying, like something out of science fiction where the robots decide not to kill us all.
It does have that ring to it. But the unemployment concerns he raises are very real, very immediate for a lot of people. He suggests AI could displace jobs across many sectors, disrupting the workforce quite dramatically.
Yeah, you hear that fear a lot. But then, on the flip side, you have these incredible new tools emerging, right? Like vibe coding.
Yes, companies like Lovable are pushing this idea of vibe coding. It's an approach that Andrej Karpathy also popularized. Basically, you describe what you want an app or website to do in natural language.
Just tell it what you want.
Pretty much. You describe the vibe or the function, and the AI generates the actual code.
Wow. That makes software creation accessible to almost anyone, doesn't it?
It's potentially groundbreaking in terms of accessibility, empowering non-programmers.
Hmm.
But there are concerns, big concerns.
Like what?
Accountability, for one. Who's responsible if the AI-generated code has flaws? Maintainability. And
Yeah.
how easy is it to fix or update this code later? And security vulnerabilities, AI might inadvertently create code with security holes.
Right. There was that New York Times journalist, Kevin Roose, who tried building an app with AI.
Exactly. His experience showed both how incredibly powerful these tools are becoming, but also highlighted their current limitations and potential pitfalls. It works, but maybe not perfectly, and not without risks.
So powerful, accessible, but maybe needs a buyer beware label for now. And then there's the move into the physical world, generative AI being used for robotics.
Absolutely. Take Runway AI. They're known for their AI models that generate video, like Gen 1 and Gen 2. Now they're pivoting that expertise towards robotics and self-driving cars.
Applying that AI pattern recognition and generation to controlling robots.
Precisely. And it points to a much broader trend in tech investment. Companies are leveraging AI to automate complex, sometimes dangerous physical tasks. Think manufacturing, logistics, hazardous environment
It
exploration.
reduces risk, reduces cost.
That's the goal. So the main insight here for you is really critical. AI isn't some distant future thing anymore. It's here. It's now. It's actively changing how we work, how we create, how we interact with the physical and digital worlds, probably faster than most of us realize.
And those big questions about ethics, about jobs, about international collaboration on safety, they're not theoretical anymore.
They're immediate. They're pressing. We're navigating a massive technological and cultural shift, pushing the boundaries of what expertise even means. Hashtag tag 2, global hotspots and geopolitical chessboard.
Okay, let's shift gears now. We're moving into some of the most, well, critical and often heartbreaking geopolitical hotspots around the globe, places where these huge political forces have very real, very human consequences.
And we have to start with the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine, specifically looking at the occupied West Bank right now. The situation there is particularly tense for Palestinian farmers, especially with the olive harvest approaching.
Which is hugely important culturally and economically, right?
Absolutely vital. It's a cornerstone of their livelihood and heritage. But farmers, like one named Yusuf from Kufr Qadam, are facing escalating restrictions. Access to their land, their olive groves, is increasingly difficult, and there's rising violence from Israeli settlers and also military forces.
Preventing them from harvesting their own crops.
Often, yes, or making it incredibly dangerous. Reports suggest settler aggression is at its highest level in maybe 2 decades. And this directly undermines efforts by groups like the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, who try to support the harvest.
And this is happening against the backdrop of that International Court of Justice ruling, the ICJ.
Exactly. The ICJ deemed Israel's presence in the occupied territories unlawful. So you see this clash, international law versus the reality on the ground, impacting everything from economics to culture to basic safety. It's deeply intertwined.
It's not just about farming, it's about a systematic pressure on their way of life. And in Gaza, the situation, it just sounds beyond catastrophic.
It remains horrific. Israeli attacks have intensified, reducing large areas, according to reports, to just fields of rubble. Recent strikes alone were reported to have killed at least 78 Palestinians.
And the total death toll since October 7th, 2023?
It's staggering. Over 63,000 lives lost, according to Gaza's health ministry. And that includes 274 journalists killed since the conflict began.
274 journalists. That makes it the deadliest conflict for media workers ever recorded, doesn't it?
By far. The director of Gaza's government media office has described Israel's actions as a scorched earth policy. There are even reports of explosive robots being used in civilian areas.
Hmm.
International condemnation continues to grow.
You mentioned efforts like the global Sumud flotilla trying to break the blockade.
Yes, these symbolic attempts highlight the desperation and the ongoing humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, Israel recently announced they killed a Hamas military spokesperson, which is a significant development from their perspective in the military campaign.
And this conflict isn't contained, is it? We're seeing ripple effects like in Yemen.
Definitely. In Yemen, the Iran-backed Houthi rebels have detained at least 11 United Nations personnel.
11 UN staff.
Why? The Houthis claim it's a direct response to an earlier Israeli airstrike which killed the Houthi Prime Minister, Ahmed Ghaleb Nasser al-Rahali, and other key officials.
So retaliation that directly impacts humanitarian work.
Precisely. It severely complicates aid delivery in Yemen, a country already facing one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. And you also have allegations circulating about U.S. complicity in civilian casualties, both in Yemen and Gaza, which just adds more layers of complexity and regional volatility.
It really underscores how interconnected these conflicts are.
Absolutely. The key insight for you, the listener, is this immediate, dangerous ripple effect. Violence in one spot triggers responses elsewhere, impacting aid, global media integrity, everything. And it forces us to ask tough questions about how international bodies can even operate in these situations and what responsibilities global powers have to protect civilians and push for peace.
Okay, let's move to another major geopolitical flashpoint. The ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. It continues to reshape the global order.
Indeed. The conflict grinds on. Reports suggest Russia is focusing heavily on replenishing its military forces and equipment to sustain its operations. Ukraine, meanwhile, is intensifying its counteroffensives where it can.
And there was news about an assassination within Ukraine.
Yes, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced the arrest of a suspect in the killing of Andrei Parubi, a far-right member of parliament, in the city of Lviv.
Parubi was quite a controversial figure, wasn't he? Involved in the 2014 Maidan events.
Very controversial. Ukraine's police chief hinted at possible Russian involvement, suggesting it was part of a broader Russian strategy to destabilize Ukraine. However, they haven't presented concrete evidence publicly.
And the Russian perspective.
Russian officials have suggested it could be down to internal Ukrainian rivalries, given Parubi's political history. So, as often happens, you have conflicting narratives emerging.
Right, and adding to the tension, there was that incident involving the EU chief's flight.
Yes, that was quite concerning. European Union chief Ursula von der Leyen's plane experienced suspected GPS jamming while flying over Bulgaria. The European Commission confirmed navigation issues occurred.
Russian jamming suspected.
That's the strong suspicion.
Yeah.
It's widely seen as part of a pattern of, let's say, assertive or aggressive Russian behavior. It raises serious safety concerns, obviously, but also geopolitical ones. It complicates the security landscape across Europe.
I mean, jamming GPS on a flight carrying the head of the EU, that's not subtle. It really does highlight the potential risks for even regular air travel.
Absolutely. But amidst all this tension, there are still some diplomatic channels open, however strained.
Like Turkey's role.
Yeah, exactly. Turkey continues to try and mediate. Russian President Vladimir Putin actually publicly thanked Turkish President Erdogan for helping to facilitate direct talks between Moscow and Kyiv.
And those talks achieve something.
According to Putin, they yielded some progress on humanitarian issues, like prisoner exchanges. It shows Turkey is still managing to maintain ties with both sides and act as a bridge, which is quite a balancing act.
Meanwhile, other countries are focusing on defense against perceived threats, like Germany.
Yes, Germany announced it's significantly overhauling its counterintelligence capabilities. They say it's to counter what they describe as a comprehensive Russian campaign involving cyber attacks, disinformation, and even attempts to influence political decisions.
And the Kremlin's response.
They dismiss these claims, essentially calling it anti-Russian sentiment.
So the takeaway here seems to be this ongoing multi-layered conflict, hot war on the ground, information warfare, cyber threats, and this complex diplomatic maneuvering all happening simultaneously.
That sums it up well. Different narratives, competing motives, and nations constantly trying to balance security concerns with the need for some level of engagement in a really polarized world.
Speaking of a shifting global order and new alignments, let's talk about the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO. There was a summit in Tianjin, China that seemed pretty significant.
It really did. The optics were striking. You had China's President Xi Jinping, Russia's President Putin, and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi displaying this remarkable sense of camaraderie.
Yeah.
The message was clear: partnership over rivalry, at least between them.
A counterweight to Western influence.
That was definitely the undertone and often the overtone. The summit showcased a significant strategic alignment, particularly between China, Russia, and India, aimed at challenging what they see as Western dominance and pushing for a multipolar world order.
And India's role seemed particularly notable. Modi was quite assertive about ties with Russia.
He was. Modi explicitly hailed India's special and privileged energy relationship with Russia. This is, of course, despite ongoing anger from the United States about India buying Russian oil and U.S. pressure on EU countries to actually sanction India over it.
So India is really charting its own course here, defying U.S. pressure quite openly.
Absolutely. It's a clear assertion of foreign policy sovereignty. India is engaging closely with both Russia and China, even while the U.S. tries to pull it away. And the symbolism was potent, too.
You mean Putin and Modi riding together?
Yeah, that picture of them sharing a ride in Putin's Russian-made Urus Senate limousine, it got huge attention on social media, a very deliberate visual statement about their deepening ties.
And this contrasts with statements from the U.S. side, like President Trump's claims about India offering tariff reductions.
Right. President Trump mentioned India had apparently offered to cut tariffs to zero, but claimed the offer came too late. It just highlights the complex and sometimes contradictory dynamics in the U.S.-India relationship, especially compared to India's current posture towards Russia and China.
Interesting. And Putin wasn't just there for photo ops. He was briefing Xi and Modi on other major talks.
Correct. He updated them on his recent discussions with U.S. President Donald Trump, which took place in Alaska. According to Putin, those talks were aimed at finding a broader peace agreement for Ukraine.
Putin briefing China and India on talks with the U.S. president about Ukraine.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating triangle.
It is. Putin emphasized the need to address what Russia sees as root causes, like NATO expansion. And he specifically thanked China and India for their involvement in trying to resolve the conflict.
And Xi Jinping's message at the summit.
She was very direct. He called on all SKO members to actively challenge Western dominance, push for that multipolar world, and significantly enhance their economic and cultural cooperation. The SKO started as more of a security bloc, but it's clearly broadening its ambitions.
And while all this is happening, North Korea is also making moves.
Yes, adding another layer of complexity, especially in Asia. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was shown inspecting a new missile production line. This signals they're preparing for potentially closer military ties with Russia and China.
Positioning themselves within this emerging bloc.
Seems likely. And his regime strongly condemned the trilateral cooperation between the U.S., Japan, and South Korea, painting it as a provocation.
So the big picture insight here is the rapid formation, or at least strengthening, of these significant alternative alliances. China, Russia, India, potentially North Korea aligning more closely.
It's fundamentally shifting global power dynamics. How will this impact international trade, security alliances, diplomatic relations for countries all around the world, including potentially your country? It's a profound shift away from the post-Cold War order. #Tag3, Earth's unsettled ground and shifting climates.
Okay, let's bring our focus back down to Earth itself now, specifically to events that remind us of its raw power and, unfortunately, the devastating consequences that can follow. We have to talk about the terrible earthquake in Afghanistan.
Yes, a truly tragic event. A powerful 6.0 magnitude earthquake struck eastern Afghanistan, very close to the border with Pakistan.
And the casualties.
The initial reports from the Taliban's Interior Ministry put the death toll at over 800 people, with more than 2,800 injured. And sadly, those numbers are expected to rise.
Where exactly did it hit, and when?
It happened around midnight, local time, which is just awful, catching people asleep. The epicenter was near Jalalabad, the capital of Nangarhar province. Critically, it was very shallow, only about 8 kilometers deep.
And shallow quakes tend to cause more intense shaking at the surface, right? Leading to more destruction.
Exactly. That shallow depth likely amplified the devastation. Entire villages have reportedly been destroyed, especially in mountainous areas like Kunar province.
Why are those areas particularly vulnerable?
The construction methods. Many homes there are built using traditional mud and rock, which simply can't withstand strong seismic shaking. Reports paint a grim picture of flattened villages, people trapped under rubble, including children and the elderly, all while dealing with aftershocks.
It's just heartbreaking. And Afghanistan is already facing so many challenges.
Immense challenges. This quake highlights the country's extreme vulnerability, not just to earthquakes, but also the difficulty of disaster response. You have difficult mountainous terrain, communications are often down, and there's the pre-existing humanitarian crisis.
And this follows another major quake relatively recently, doesn't it?
Yes, just back in October 2023, there was that devastating earthquake in Herat province, further west, which killed over 2,400 people. It's just one blow after another.
So the need for international aid must be urgent.
Absolutely critical. Calls are going out for medical supplies, rescue equipment, shelter, food, everything. It's a major catastrophe for a country already grappling with severe economic and political instability. The insight here is really about global solidarity, the need for effective disaster preparedness, especially in regions like this, which are tectonically active and highly vulnerable. It's a stark reminder of shared humanity.
From that immediate, violent rupture of the Earth, let's shift to a slower but just as relentless global crisis: climate change. And the headlines recently have been, well, literally scorching.
That's putting it mildly. We've seen record-breaking heat this summer in several places. Both Japan and South Korea reported their hottest summers ever recorded.
Ever. Since records began.
Yes. In Japan, the average temperature was a huge 2.36 degrees Celsius, above their 30-year average. That makes it the hottest summer since they started keeping records back in 1898.
Wow. Are specific locations breaking records too?
Oh, yes. A staggering 123 out of 153 weather stations across Japan reported record-high temperatures. And get this, the city of Isesaki actually broke Japan's all-time hottest day record twice in the same day, eventually hitting 41.8 degrees Celsius.
That's nearly 107 degrees Fahrenheit. Unbelievable. And it wasn't just Japan and South Korea.
Now, the UK also officially experienced its warmest summer on record in 2025. And what's really telling is that all 5 of the UK's hottest summers have occurred since the year 2000.
All 5 since 2000. That's not just, a random warm spell. That's a clear trend. An alarm bell.
It's an undeniable, stark indicator of accelerating climate change. We're seeing more frequent and more intense extreme weather events. And these records just fuel the urgent calls for stronger climate policies and drastic cuts in carbon emissions.
It's the physical manifestation of the climate crisis. But there's also been a significant development on the legal front, right? Regarding climate justice.
A very significant one. The International Court of Justice, the ICJ, has issued what's called an advisory opinion. And it affirms that environmental degradation actually infringes on human rights.
Okay, that sounds huge. What does that mean, practically?
It means the world's top court is explicitly linking a healthy environment to fundamental human rights. This provides a powerful new legal foundation to hold countries accountable for their actions or inactions regarding the climate crisis.
So it challenges the old argument that only specific climate treaties matter.
Exactly. It says, no, this is a human rights issue, period. The opinion states clearly that a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is essential for fulfilling basic human rights. And importantly, it specifically supports appeals coming from indigenous communities.
Why indigenous communities in particular?
Because they're often on the front lines, disproportionately affected by climate change impacts like rising sea levels, melting ice, deforestation, yet often have the least historical responsibility for causing the crisis.
So this ruling could give more weight to cases like the one brought by the Zenith Case Islanders against Australia. Their case about rising sea levels was initially dismissed, wasn't it?
Precisely. The ICJ opinion promotes principles like equity and precaution. It argues for targeted protections for vulnerable ecosystems and communities and pushes back against harmful projects. While the opinion itself isn't legally binding on individual states.
It carries immense legal and moral weight.
Exactly. It's expected to significantly influence future court cases around the world. It could empower vulnerable communities everywhere and really reshape climate governance. Think about cases like the Mudusjärvi Reindeer Herders Cooperative against Finland. This opinion could offer them powerful new leverage.
So the big insight for you, the listener, is that climate change isn't just an environmental problem anymore, if it ever was. It's being framed, legally and morally, as a fundamental human rights challenge.
And that potentially ushers in a whole new era of accountability for nations on the world stage. #TagIV, economic currents and societal shifts.
All right, let's bring our focus now to the United States, looking at some intersecting economic currents and political crossroads that are definitely shaping the landscape there.
Yeah, there's some interesting and perhaps concerning preliminary data emerging about the U.S. labor force under President Donald Trump. It suggests that around 1.2 million immigrants may have exited the labor force.
1.2 million, that's a significant number. What's driving that?
The primary driver appears to be fear related to immigration enforcement actions, specifically by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. People are worried about deportation.
And that has real economic consequences, right?
Right.
Especially in certain sectors.
Absolutely. Industries like agriculture, construction, hospitality sectors that often rely heavily on immigrant labor could feel a significant impact. We heard the story of Lydia, a tomato harvester in California, who expressed anxiety that even routine daily activities might lead to deportation. It creates a climate of fear that affects people's ability and willingness to work.
So a direct social and economic impact from immigration policy and enforcement rhetoric. Meanwhile, President Trump's trade policies are also facing legal challenges.
They are. A federal appeals court recently ruled that most of the tariffs President Trump imposed are actually unlawful.
Most of them. Which ones are we talking about?
These were broad tariffs implemented back in April, justified by the administration as a response to unfair trade practices by other countries. Trump himself has warned that getting rid of these tariffs could, in his words, reduce the U.S. to a third world nation.
Strong words. So what happens now with that ruling?
Well, the ruling creates a lot of uncertainty for his trade strategy. Some targeted tariffs, like those on steel and aluminum, weren't affected. But for the broader ones, the administration has until mid-October to decide whether to appeal the decision to the Supreme Court.
And what are the economic arguments around these tariffs?
It's very polarized. The administration frames them as worker first, protecting American jobs. But many critics, including lawmakers from both parties and numerous economists, argue they actually harm the U.S. economy by raising costs for businesses and consumers. And they fear it increases the risk of a recession.
Okay, so a legal battle with significant economic implications. And we're also seeing changes within government agencies and social programs.
Yes. The Trump administration announced plans to cut over 500 staff positions at the U.S. Agency for Global Media, USAGM. That's the agency overseeing outlets like Voice of America.
Why the cut?
The official reason given is efficiency. But this follows earlier layoffs at Voice of America, VOA. And it comes amidst ongoing tensions and accusations regarding perceived media bias, with claims of partisan reporting being leveled against these outlets.
Right. And then there are changes coming to Social Security.
Yes, a significant one. An executive order signed by President Trump is set to bring major changes to the Social Security program, impacting over 500,000 beneficiaries, starting from September 30th.
500,000 people affected. What kind of changes?
The specifics are complex, but supporters argue the changes are needed to ensure the program's long-term financial stability. However, critics are deeply concerned, fearing these changes will ultimately lead to reduced benefits for current and future recipients.
Which could have a huge impact on families relying on those funds.
A massive impact. So what's really fascinating here, the insight for you, is seeing how all these different policy levers, immigration, trade, media funding, social welfare, are being pulled simultaneously. They intersect, they create complex economic and social challenges, and they definitely shape public perception and the political narrative, especially as the nation looks towards future elections.
Okay, let's hop across the Atlantic now and look at some notable social and economic policy developments in the United Kingdom.
There's a major new initiative focused on childcare. The UK government has rolled out a new funding scheme offering 30 hours of free childcare per week for working parents.
30 hours a week, that sounds substantial. What's the goal there?
The main aims are to ease the significant financial burden of childcare costs for families, which is huge in the UK. Also to encourage more parents, especially mothers, to participate in the workforce and ultimately to support early childhood development.
Seems like a positive move, but are there concerns?
Yes. The main concern raised by critics is whether the existing childcare infrastructure nurseries, childminders, can actually cope with the expected surge in demand. Is there enough capacity? Are there enough qualified staff?
Right. I read this incredible story about one mother who actually planned the date of her cesarean section specifically to make sure her child would be eligible for this funding based on the start date.
It's an astonishing example, isn't it? It just vividly illustrates how the specific details of government policies can directly influence deeply personal life decisions, like the timing of childbirth. It shows the real-world impact.
Definitely. What else is happening in the UK on the economic front?
Well, in Scotland, the rail operator, ScotRail, has taken the interesting step of scrapping peak time rail fares on some of its routes.
Scrapping peak fares. So No more paying extra to travel during rush hour.
On certain routes, yes, and this has led to fare reductions of up to 50% for some journeys.
What's the thinking behind that?
It's primarily aimed at encouraging more people to choose train travel over driving, especially for commuting. The goals are to ease road congestion, particularly in cities, and promote more sustainable transport options by making rail significantly more affordable and accessible during busy periods.
That could make a real difference to commuter habits and maybe even help environmental goals.
Hmm.
Interesting move.
It is. And one other piece of positive economic news from the UK. Royal Mail, the National Postal Service, reported its first return to profitability in 3 years.
Royal Mail's been struggling, haven't they?
They have faced significant financial challenges, including strikes and falling letter volumes. This return to profit comes under new ownership and management, who have focused on streamlining operations, improving service delivery, and trying to regain customer and investor confidence.
So a potential turnaround story there.
Potentially, yes. So these examples from the UK, the childcare scheme, the rail fare changes, the Royal Mail news, they illustrate different approaches to tackling economic and social challenges. The key takeaway is seeing how government policies and even corporate turnarounds can directly shape everything from family planning to daily commutes to the health of essential national services. #ChagV, crime and community resilience.
Okay, let's turn now to some difficult but important issues closer to home, focusing on crime, community safety, and resilience. We're starting with the persistent problem of urban gun violence.
Yes. Sadly, we saw another spate of shootings in Chicago, Illinois. Reports indicated that 35 individuals were shot in various incidents across the city over a recent period.
35 people shot. It just highlights the ongoing struggle Chicago faces with gun violence.
It really does. And this latest wave happened amidst a public political exchange on the issue. President Donald Trump criticized Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker's handling of crime in the city and suggested deploying the National Guard.
Federal intervention. How did the governor respond?
Governor Pritzker rejected the idea, stating that the state's own security measures were adequate and that federal intervention wasn't warranted or welcome.
So a clash over jurisdiction and strategy.
Exactly. It brings those debates about public safety, the effectiveness of current local crime policies, and the appropriate role of federal versus state authorities right to the forefront. Meanwhile, community leaders in Chicago continue to call for action to address the root causes of the violence.
It's a stark contrast, the political back and forth versus the immediate reality of violence affecting communities. And tragically, there was another incident involving gun violence, this one involving a child.
Yes, a truly heartbreaking story out of Houston, Texas. An 11-year-old boy died after being shot.
How did it happen?
Reports suggest he was participating in a common childhood prank, ding-dong ditch, where kids ring a doorbell and run away. Apparently, someone inside the house responded with gunfire.
Oh my God. That's horrific.
It's deeply disturbing. It raises profound concerns about, well, everything: youth behavior, reactions to minor provocations, community safety, access to firearms, gun violence. It's prompted widespread calls for greater awareness and preventative measures. The police investigation is ongoing to determine the exact circumstances.
These stories just underscore the complex and often tragic intersection of policy, community dynamics, individual actions, and the pervasiveness of violence.
Absolutely. The insight here forces us to confront how effective our current strategies really are in addressing the deep-rooted causes of crime and violence, whether it's large-scale urban patterns or isolated tragic incidents.
Moving from those domestic tragedies, let's look at two other stark examples of crime on a different scale. One involving international criminal networks, the other a truly horrifying cult tragedy.
In Europe, we saw a successful joint operation between Greek and German police. They managed to dismantle a significant cocaine smuggling ring that was operating across the continent.
How are they moving the drugs?
They arrested 5 individuals who were allegedly using trucks disguised as legitimate goods carriers. They'd transport large quantities of cocaine, reportedly originating in Spain, to Greece and other European destinations.
So hiding in plain sight, essentially.
Exactly. The operation highlights the effectiveness of international police collaboration in tackling these sophisticated, organized crime networks, which pose major threats to public safety and health right across Europe. It's a constant battle.
A successful bust, which is good news. But then we have this absolutely chilling story emerging from Kenya.
It's truly horrific. Authorities in Kenya have uncovered over 30 more bodies in a remote village. This is linked to the religious cult led by the self-proclaimed pastor, Paul Mackenzie.
30 more bodies. What's the total now?
It brings the total number of bodies recovered in relation to this cult to over 430. It's just staggering.
And how did these people die?
The evidence suggests many victims, tragically including children, died from starvation. Others showed signs of physical abuse. Mackenzie allegedly instructed his followers to starve themselves in anticipation of the apocalypse. Investigators even found 54 dismembered body parts among the remains.
That is just beyond comprehension. What charges does Mackenzie face?
He's facing multiple, very serious charges, including terrorism, murder, and child cruelty. At least 11 other individuals are also under investigation in connection with the cult's activities.
The scale of manipulation and abuse is just evil.
Yep.
What's the government's response in Kenya?
The Kenyan government has promised tighter regulation of religious groups in the country, trying to prevent anything like this from happening again. They're also talking about enhanced community surveillance. But this case just exposes the horrifying depths of exploitation that can occur under extremist religious figures.
It raises incredibly difficult questions, doesn't it?
It really does. The insight here touches on that delicate, crucial balance. How does a society protect religious freedom while also shielding vulnerable individuals from this kind of extreme exploitation and abuse? And looking at both the drug bust and the cult, it also reminds us of the constant challenge law enforcement faces, whether it's combating transnational crime networks or preventing tragedies hidden within seemingly isolated communities. #OutroPastor.
Wow, that brings us to the end of another deep dive. What a journey. We've gone from the very dawn of the universe with that mind-bogglingly early black hole.
Yeah, right through the complexities of the geopolitical chessboard, the Middle East, Russia, Ukraine, the shifting alliances with China and India.
We've felt the heat, literally, from climate change records and seen how environmental issues are becoming human rights issues.
Navigated some complex economic policies in the US and UK, seeing how they affect jobs, families, even commutes.
And we've explored those really tough stories of human tragedy, crime, exploitation, but also resilience in places like Afghanistan, Chicago, Kenya.
It's been a really comprehensive look, I think, at the sheer range of discoveries and challenges shaping our world right now.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, maybe here's a final thought for you, our listener. As we keep trying to unravel the universe's biggest mysteries and grapple with our planet's most pressing challenges, just consider this.
Yeah.
The act of seeking knowledge itself, of doing this deep dive, digging into these complex topics, it's not just about understanding the world out there. It's actually about empowering you to potentially shape its future.
That's a great point. In this age where we're just flooded with information, overload is real.
Totally. So that critical thinking we've tried to encourage today, seeing the connections, asking why, understanding the context, maybe that's the most valuable tool any of us possess right now.
Couldn't agree more. Keep asking those questions. Keep digging deeper. Remember that every piece of information, every perspective, especially when you see how it connects to other things, it adds to your ability, your capacity to make sense of this incredibly dynamic, sometimes confusing, but always fascinating world.
Well said. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep making those connections. We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.